Hi friends, Joshua Maria Garcia here, and today we are going to talk about the elements of the zodiac signs themselves. In the last video, we talked about the elements themselves from the perspective of classical Greek philosophy and particularly Greek humoral medicine. Today we're going to be applying our understanding of the elements to the signs and also shifting a little bit from that earlier Greek model over to a more Euro-Western sort of model. Alchemical model is really the technical term for it, that will be a little bit more familiar to most folks and will be helpful because in my classes I typically use astro.com to generate all my charts, and astro.com uses this sort of like new age color scheme for the elements. And if you remember from last time, we used a slightly different color scheme. I like you to know both of them actually, so that you have those both in your pocket and you don't get cemented into one sort of culturally specific worldview there. I have been showing you the zodiac like this. Hopefully you know the glyphs at this point, but pause, go back to an old video, go through them again in case you're still a little bit rusty on that. And we're going to move into elements right away. Okay, so here I've added in the elemental glyph for each zodiac sign, and you can see that there's a clear pattern expressed here: fire, earth, air, and water. And you probably could have figured out what the elements were without me telling you, because those colors are so familiar to so many of us who are interested in esotericism in the West. So our fire glyph here is a red upright triangle. Now, from here, let's go over to our first water sign and see the upside down or inverted blue triangle. These triangles represent those primary qualities of the elements, positive and negative. And you can see that they're in a positive sign for fire and a negative sign for water. Now, when we come to the earth and air glyphs, earth is green, it's an inverted triangle with a bar. Air is orange or yellow, and it's an upright triangle with a bar. That bar is recognizing or representing that the secondary quality is present. So while earth is primarily negative, it is secondarily positive because it's dry, right? And air, though it is primarily positive, it's secondarily negative because it's moist. And so we see that sort of shift in the elements across the elemental cycle of the signs, where we start out with this primary positivity, secondary positivity, and then we sort of mix our way across to primary negativity and secondary negativity. So that's a little bit of an introduction into those elemental glyphs. And now if you put them all together, you'll get a symbol that is oftentimes known as a hexagram or a Star of David, or a Shield of David is the more appropriate translation from Hebrew, which represents a spirit. The combination of all the physical or mundane elements yields spirit, or perhaps they all come from or are parts of spiritual energy. A little bit of mysticism for your day there. So let's start out with each of these triplicities. Now that's an important vocabulary word for our time together, because each element is also a triplicity, and you can see more clearly in this diagram why. There are 3 of each element among the zodiac. So Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, those are our 3 fire signs. Now if we get out our handy dandy annotation tools here, we can represent the relationship between the signs of the same element with an equilateral triangle, and this is called a grand trine, which we're going to talk a lot more about in aspects, not right now, but basically showing the really important and strong relationship between the signs of a single element. And of course you can draw a triangle to connect all the signs of any of the elements that you like. So last time we really took a very technical approach to the element. This time I want to do a more sort of new agey, feelings-oriented, intuitive approach to reading the elements in the signs. We're going to really let the metaphors of those elements speak for themselves. Now, fire, so you have Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. Fire is the most positive of the elements, which we already know. And we know that positivity is really about the presence of energy, and heat is really about the presence of energy. That primary positivity is heat. And so fire is energizing and transforming. If you think about fire, when you burn something, it is changed forever. You can't go back. Fire is active, it is dominant, it is willful, it forces itself through, it leads, it does not follow. And fire moves up. So when we talk about the motion of energy as an upward motion, we're thinking about rising energy, expansive energy. That is fire in the zodiac signs. Now, each of the zodiac signs is going to express each of the fire signs is going to express its fire a little bit differently, and that interacts with modality or with quadruplicity. So Aries is the cardinal fire sign. So fire is really in full expression there because cardinality is really an easy place for fire sign to be. It's right there at the beginning of the season. It gets to lead. However, Leo is fixed fire, and so that's going to change the way that fire expresses itself. And Sagittarius is mutable fire, and so that's really going to change the way fire expresses itself. It's coming at the end of a season. What does fire do when it's sort of forced into that situation? And we'll see more of that as we go through the signs themselves individually and put all these qualities together that we've been learning. But for now, let's just focus on the qualities. So now we move on to Earth. So take a look at that chart again. We have Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, and we're going in order of the cycle of elements in the stars. Earth is physical. It is practical. Earth is common sense. Think about dry. Earth is about direct experience without ideas, concepts, or beliefs, or even wishful thinking. Just the facts, please. Earth is also substantial. It is material. Earth stands still in terms of energetic movement. In terms of energetic movement, we don't get much movement. We stand still. And that can be really stabilizing and nice, or it can be super stubborn and annoying. It depends. It really depends on which perspective you're coming from. Let's talk about our air signs next. We have Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius here. Now, again, these elements are going to be modulated by our modalities, and we got to keep that in mind. We're just not focusing on that right at this very moment. So air is positive, but it is a little bit different because it's also moist. So it's animated, it's a little less unstable than fire. Fire doesn't have any modulation, it's just pure energy. Air is transporting. Air transports us through ideas associated with thinking and logic. And that has to do with the moisture of air, actually, because impressions of mind are very much related to moisture. Air moves horizontally. So, fire moves up, earth stands still, air moves across the face of the earth. Think about wind. Think about wind and sails. Air is this sort, it's still moving, but it's not as violent of a motion as fire. Okay. Now, water, we have Cancer, we have Scorpio, we have Pisces as our water signs. These are the most negative signs. Now, I want to remind you, to be really clear about this, positive and negative has nothing to do with good and bad. It has to do with sending out energy or receiving it. So when we say these are the most negative signs, these are the signs that want to receive the most energy in order to be on center. They are emotional, they are nurturing, empathetic, psychic. Water flows gently, so it wants to move a bit slower than the other elements, except for earth, which doesn't move much. And water moves down deep. It wants to reach down into the cracks and crevices of the earth and find those deep hidden places. So we think about secrets and darkness as well in those places. Now, when we're reading a chart and we bring in the elements into our interpretation, hopefully they're present in all interpretation all the time, we want to let the metaphor of the elements do the work for us. So what does fire do? It warms, it burns, it changes things forever, it lights the way. That's the leadership quality. If you think about earth, think about rocks. Rocks hold still unless you move them. You can build with earth, and it changes so slowly. Air moves somewhat quickly, but again, doesn't have the same sort of destructive movement that fire does. Air gives life in our breath. It fills sails, as I said before. Water nourishes, it softens, it hides things when it's really deep. So again, you can use the metaphors. If the technical side isn't clicking for you, you can use the metaphors of the elements to really get a feel for the element the sign is in. And we're going to carry that feel with us through the modalities to modulate that energy and understand how it's being expressed in the sign. So again, just to remind you, if you connect any 3 signs in one element, you will get this really great triangle pattern. Let's do one more. Let's do the earth signs here. And this shape is going to keep coming back to us over and over again in astrology. It's going to come back in aspects. It's going to come back when we learn houses and the relationships between different houses. It's really going to be an important shape to keep in mind. Triangles, people, they're everywhere. It's like you could do a whole like conspiracy theory video about triangles in astrology. Okay, so this was a really quick one, but this is really all you need to get going in understanding the elements of each of the signs. And try to, as you're learning the different qualities, try to keep in mind that all these qualities are combining together when we actually take each of the signs individually, which is what we're going to do next.